They played baseball because they loved to play baseball. And you felt it in the stands, and it was kind of like a family gathering. And Dad used to love to have me bring a kid or two and just sit there and eat popcorn and root for the home team. And it wasn't just Harpo's family, it was everybody's family was there.
Have you met Lydia? Lydia, the tattooed lady. She has eyes that men adore so, and a torso.
I've had people say to me, it must have been really exciting to grow up as Groucho Marx's daughter. I bet that was a laugh all the time.
Did you see me go in the closet?
No.
Am I in the closet now?
Well, no.
Then how do you know I was in the closet?
It was not a laugh all the time. It would be very boring if it had been.
The Marx brothers moved to California in 1931. Groucho had married Ruth, his first wife, a dancer in the vaudeville act, and they had 2 children, Arthur and Miriam.
Here I am incarcerated in Beverly Hills in this lowly little dungeon, and this is all I have to show for my efforts. This is the swimming pool, Ed. You know, I lived here 22 years before I put in a pool. I always had the water, but this year I put the concrete around it.
He liked California very much. He was a great gardener, so he had his own vegetable garden and he had his own fruit trees. He was always puttering in the garden.
I can't raise coffee here. I raise oranges and tangerines.
You want to know about my Uncle Groucho? Well, I'm very conflicted about him because I love him very much and he also makes me very angry. He's difficult. He was a very difficult man. When I was little, I adored him because he was great with small children. He teased you, but in a nice way. And when I used to go backstage with a little friend that was the same, age as I was, the first thing he'd say was, "Are you married?" And a 6-year-old would go,
Groucho's home life was quite different from ours.
My mother was a practicing alcoholic, so dinner was not real comfortable. There would be a lot of tension, a lot of arguing, a lot of unpleasantness. My brother and I had to sit through that. So that's why I did a lot of getting on my bike and going over to Harpo's house. Because even though they had 4 small children at that time, it was peaceful. There was a peacefulness there. There was a love between them. And I'd always hoped they'd ask me to dinner, and they usually did.
Miriam would come over and visit because we were plain country people, kind of, to her, and there was no pressure on her to perform or to laugh or to care about anything.
Like most young people, I wanted to be an actress. He discouraged that early on, so I decided to be a writer, and he did encourage that. He was a frustrated writer. I mean, he was a writer. He did write things. Whenever he wrote anything, he would ask me to read it and give him my opinion. He seemed to value that.
I wasn't ever crazy about acting. I was much more interested in writing. Some of the best writers in America I was writing with. I had some letters with Somerset Maugham.
You wrote to and met T.S. Eliot, didn't you?
He wrote me a letter. He asked me if I would send him a photograph of me. And I sent him one. And he returned it. He says, "I want one with you smoking a cigar."
Could there be another book?
There could be, yes. But a good many of my friends are dead. It's very difficult to correspond with somebody who's dead.
He wrote me a letter when he was in New York on business, and he said he wanted to know how Duke and I were. He said, "You think that Duke is your dog, but he's really my dog." And then he had an imaginary conversation with Duke. And it's just a lovely letter.
I don't know whether you have ever been a dog, but it has certain advantages and disadvantages. As you know, your father and I both live under the same roof. It isn't that I don't like your father, but my freedom is terribly important, and I'm not going to relinquish it for the mangy pound-and-a-half of horse meat that he tosses at me each evening. Take care of yourself. That's the leash you can do. Your old pal, Duke Marx.
I saved all of his letters, I guess because I loved him so much, and I just wanted him near me all the time.
And just as Groucho had encouraged his first daughter, Miriam, to write, he encouraged his second daughter, Melinda, to sing.
I'm going to sing a song for you with my daughter, which is something she does very well. She's real talented. You don't need stand or lighting. It is not so surprising.
He definitely wanted Melinda to have a career in show business. He was a show business parent, a show business father instead of mother. He pushed her.
I never have rejected much. I want my dinners and conversation and loads of loving love.
She had talent. I don't know that, quite frankly, she had any more talent than a lot of other young girls, but they didn't have Groucho Marx for a father.
You know, I've seen that kid someplace before.
I didn't get the name.
She didn't. Would you bring her out? I'd like to ask her her name.
Yes.
Come out here and sit down, Melinda. What's the idea of trying to fool your old father?
I will always miss him some, but I don't think about it a lot because I really, really loved him so very, very much. I'm just glad that he's made the world happy as well as me.
And Chico could charm the birds off the trees. Dogs loved him, children loved him. A friend would come over and I'd say, Daddy, will you play the piano for us? And he would. And he'd play all the old songs.
I really liked Chico. And he would come in and join me at the piano. And he would teach me his little tricks.
I play now one of my own compositions by Victor Herbert.
Family dinners. I have never laughed like that in my entire life as I did at family dinners. I laughed till I peed in my pants. I laughed until I cried. And I used to hold my stomach, you know, like, please, shush, don't say anything. I mean, they were so funny. I'd make Daddy up in the morning. I'd say, hi, Pop, and he'd say, hi, sweetheart. What's it doing out? And I said, well, it looks like it might rain. He'd say, I'll bet you 10 to 1 it doesn't rain before 2. I mean, he had to have something going all the time.
I got my name when I was about 15 years of age. I used to chase the chickens. I still chase them, but I don't catch them anymore. And I'm just waiting for a rainy day. I'm good in the mud.
Everybody loved Chico. A fellow who didn't seem to have much sense about his own life. He was himself all the time. The boys loved him because, to begin with, he was family and they'd grown up together.
Somebody asked Chico how much money he lost gambling. And Chico says, you find out how much Harpo has. That's how much I lost gambling. And he did. He didn't have any money when he died. But he had a hell of a one life.
What do you think?
Hello? Hello, yes? No, he's not in yet. All right, well, goodbye. That was for you again. I wonder whatever became of me.
I had this thing that I thought was, you know, some kind of dream. I said to my mother, you know, I have this funny dream about Grandpa, my being in some kind of a high chair, and he was trying to get me to eat. And she said, oh, that must have been when you were living with him when you were 2. I said, I lived with him when I was 2? She said, oh, yes. She said, we were doing one-nighters, and we couldn't take you. When I came back from the road, you know you wouldn't go to sleep at night unless Minnie went and lay down with you?
She was a trunk baby. She was nursed and carried around through all the towns that the Marx Brothers played. She grew up literally in show business.
I mean, I had to get into therapy before I realized how strange my childhood was. I had no friends. Nobody. I was on a train with this group. I was their adored baby. My dad met my mother, let's see, I think she was 15, and he made a date with her. and she got cold feet. He scared her, so she never showed up. About a year and a half later, she was with a girlfriend who was always boasting about knowing everybody, and they passed the theater. It said the Marx Brothers, and my mother said, I know one of the Marx Brothers, and a friend said, prove it. So my mother sent a note backstage, and then Chico came out. He looked at her, he said, you're the little girl who stood me up in Pittsburgh. And they started going together. She said to me once that after 19 years of marriage, if she heard his footsteps, her heart started to race. Boy, I don't know many people could say that. I miss so much about him. I miss his smile and the fun he generated and his sense of fun. He really had a real sense of fun. He looked at, like all gamblers, he woke up every day thinking something terrific was going to happen. That's why he was so wonderful as the leader of his brothers in terms of taking the reins of the family, because he never doubted for a minute that they weren't going to be fabulous.
I had a dog named Shep. One day, the neighbor threw a rock and hit Shep in the nose. And Shep came running up to me with his nose bleeding. So I went upstairs to my brother's room, and I got out his BB gun, and I leaned out his window and shot up all the pots in the neighbor's backyard. The neighbor was furious, came over to demand that my father pay him for the pots, which he did. And then he came upstairs, and I thought he was going to really give me a bawling out. Instead, he said, I know just how you feel, Miriam. You can do that once a month, and I'll pay for it.
I got to know Groucho best toward the end of his life, when he had the people come to visit him. There were parties thrown there at his house to honor him. And I would play the piano, and Groucho would get up and sing. He would sing songs like Peasy Weezy was a bold bad man, Peasy Weezy will catch you if he can. And it was always a great evening until 9 o'clock for Groucho, when after he had sung, he went into the bedroom and he lay down on his bed, and there was always two beautiful ladies at the party, and one on each side, and it would be a photo op for him. And that was his happiest moment. Then everybody left the bedroom, and 2 minutes later he was asleep.
He was on the phone with me, and he said, I was having financial problems. And it was right after my husband and I had split, and we'd lost our studio. And he said, honey, I'm sorry I can't help you. You should have had Groucho for a father. And I said, Pop, I wouldn't change you for Groucho any day in the week. And he gave a little laugh. I was glad he said that, and that I could answer.
And Harpo's personality was so gentle and so enjoyable that everybody felt it the minute he walked in a room. He spread light. It was nice.
You have to realize how much the brothers loved each other. It didn't matter how mad Daddy would get at one of them or how aggravated they would get with him about the gambling. They really loved each other. There was never, when they weren't making a movie, never was a day that Daddy didn't call Groucho and Harpo.
I'm sure my father would like to be remembered as somebody that made someone laugh. He loved making people laugh. And I'm pretty sure that's